"I am come hither to die." With those chilling words, Anne Boleyn stepped onto the scaffold inside the Tower of London on May 19, 1536. She wore grey damask over crimson silk, her hair tucked back, neck exposed, prepared for the sword. But what few people know is, those were not the words she intended to say. Anne Boleyn, Queen of England, crowned with glory, stripped of honor, and then this is not just the story of a queen's execution. It's a political performance, a ritualized erasure, and behind Anne's calm voice was terror, betrayal, and the ghost of a speech she was forbidden to give. Charges that most historians now agree were fabricated, a convenient purge engineered by Henry and his chief enforcer, Thomas Cromwell. Anne Boleyn had once enchanted a king so completely that he shattered a church and defied the Pope just to have her. But 6 short years after she caught Henry VIII's eye, she stood condemned, accused of adultery, incest, and treason, one that would have declared her innocence, her unwavering faith, and the injustice of her fate, and understood she was being watched down to her final breath. For a gentler nor more merciful prince was there never. Anne had prepared a bold final speech, but she was never allowed to speak it. Tudor protocol forbade condemned traitors from stirring sympathy or questioning the king's judgment. So instead, she delivered the words she was permitted to say: "I pray God save the king." Even in death, the irony burned in every syllable. William Kingston, Constable of the Tower, noted Anne's clarity and resolve in her final days. He wrote, "She would like to have some word to speak, but would not offend his grace." He wanted to appear gracious, even while sending the woman he once adored to her death. The sword was propaganda refinement, masking cruelty. She wanted to tell the truth. But the crown demanded obedience. Even in death, Anne's execution wasn't justice. It was theater, a display to reinforce the king's divine right, and her silence was choreographed to make it seem legitimate. But the performance didn't end with her words. It extended to the very blade that took her life. When she was led to the scaffold, she looked around anxiously and asked, why did Henry VIII summon a foreign executioner to kill his queen? In England, the condemned were typically executed by axe, brutal, loud, often botched. Pale light touched the scaffold, built inside the inner ward. This was no public execution, no angry mob, only a small, chosen group of nobles and officials. But for Anne Boleyn, Henry imported a master swordsman from France believed to be Jean Rambo. On the surface, it seemed merciful, dignified. But make no mistake, this was about optics. Henry didn't want blood on his hands. As she turned instinctively, he stepped in swift and silent. The executioner was paid £23, huge sum for the time, and new. According to Kingston, she joked bitterly, I heard say the executioner was very good, and I have but a little neck. Beneath her gallows humor was fear. Shall I say my prayers now? She didn't know when or from where the sword would fall. But it was also something more. Schillinger, masterclass in political manipulation. The sun rose over the tower, and stepped forward with eerie composure. Eyewitnesses described her poise, her grace. She knelt, blindfolded herself, and whispered her final words. To Jesus Christ I commend my soul. Lord Jesus, receive my soul. The swordsman called for his blade, distracting her. One stroke, and it was done. Or was it just another mask forced on her by power? No drum roll, no proclamation, just the thud of cloth and the sound of muffled weeping. Her remains were placed in an empty arrow chest and buried hurriedly in the chapel of St. Peter ad Vincula. Anne's execution was not a failure of justice. It was the triumph of statecraft, a calculated display, a warning to all who rose too high. Henry needed more than her death. He needed her cooperation, her silence, her dignity weaponized to legitimize his power. Her calm wasn't submission. It was forced choreography. What she wasn't allowed to say may echo louder through history than what she did. Anne Boleyn's death was the first state-sanctioned execution of a sitting English queen. She was erased, not just physically, but symbolically. Every gesture, every word, scripted by those who needed her gone, and yet, centuries later, we are still telling her story. Not the one written by her enemies, but the truth, clawed out from beneath the silence. Comment below. Do you believe Anne Boleyn went to her death with dignity? Subscribe for more stories of betrayal, execution, and the dark rituals of royal power, only here, in the vaults of history.